All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. We are the Survivor's Guide to Families podcast, and this is our second episode and the beginning of the new year. We are going to be doing, trying to do these on a regular basis to address topics that we really believe are vital to having successful, healthy, thriving families, right? And
Right.
so we want to address things like marriage and relationships and
Hmm.
kids and parenting. And we're not given a manual, and sometimes it feels like we're just surviving, right? And
Right.
it's not like we know what we're doing. We're not always modeled the best method as husband and wife, right? We're not always
Hmm.
given the best models from our parents. They try, but that's not always the case.
They weren't given a handbook either.
And they weren't as well. And our kids didn't come with batteries and a manual, right? And so, how to navigate these things, how to some days just survive, and how to
Hmm.
turn that from surviving to thriving. That's our heart. That's our goal, is to just have real conversations about real topics and real things that affect families. So we wanted to start the new year talking about something maybe typically is kind of reserved for Thanksgiving, right? It's this idea of being thankful and
Hmm.
gratitude. And really, I had the kind of the thought of like, what if 2024 I was more grateful,
Right.
right? I was more in line with that mindset of being grateful for what I have, right? We always start the new year. Many people try new resolutions. And we're 5 days into the new year when this is recorded, and some of us are 5 days of failing, right? Of all of our our attempts to do New Year's resolutions and try new things, and it's not a bad thing to want to be better. But what if one of our things this year was to be better at being content with what we already have, right?
Right.
It's not a bad thing to want new. It's not a bad thing to want to improve yourself. But what if, in order for us to thrive and have a great year, what if we needed to be more thankful, right? And that
Right.
helped us in our approach and maybe help define better what it truly is that we want to accomplish this year because we realize what we already have. And so that's kind of really the conversation we want to have. We're going to do several podcasts on this topic because we didn't think we could get it all in one shot. And so the title of our thought conversation for today is Elevating Optimism and Well-Being Through Gratitude. And so
Hmm.
one of the things that I was thinking about from a biblical perspective, I was thinking of one of my favorite Old Testament characters, Joseph, and really how he was such an optimistic person. I think oftentimes we talk about him and we look at his story, and it's full of tragedy, right? It's full of just complete, like, utter, like, how in the world did he stay moving forward, right? And I really think that it came down to a few key things. And I just want to touch on that before we dive into this topic, because I think the root of it is gratitude. But for me, I think if we open up the Word of God and it talks about it, to me, this stuck out, and this is kind of a rabbit trail for a moment. But I thought it was so good that we should address it. And so he is, as we all know, in this spot where he has dreams, right? He has these
Right.
things and he shares them with his family, and they're not fans, right? The Maybe it's because of what the dreams were, and maybe it's because of who he was, and so he was kind of in that spot. And at one point in the story, he is asked by his father to go check on his brothers. And his brothers say this phrase that really just kind of stuck out to me. It says that they saw him coming and they said, "Let's kill the dreamer and see if his dream does come true."
Mm.
and I was the reason that just struck me because it's like, wow, like how many times do we have people in our lives that are trying to kill our dreams,
Yeah.
right? There are times where people are malicious, right? They're steal, kill, and destroy our dreams. They don't want us to be successful. People are so critical until you make it, right? In that grind moment of like, this is my dream, and it's like, well, it's not a reality right now, and we have people that are oftentimes against us in our dreams. Maybe,
Maybe it's
maybe, maybe
ourselves.
it's ourselves. That was one
Yeah.
thought I had too. Is and maybe our own um, selves and our own thoughts are what's killing our dreams, and maybe
Hmm.
that's something we need to address. And maybe it's the people around us. And so there's two quick thoughts with that. Like, obviously, if it's ourselves, then that's something we need to address with ourselves. Maybe that's something this year that we need to really focus on. Why are we sabotaging
Hmm.
ourselves and not allowing the dream that God has given us for our future to not happen because of our own saboteur, like, and then the other side is maybe the people in our lives that are putting us down, we need to put distance to them. And that's hard because sometimes that's family, right? It's
Hmm.
not people that we necessarily feel like we can choose to be in our lives, right? We can choose our friends, but we can't choose our family, right? For the good and the bad of that. And so, how do we put distance between that, even when it is family, even when those people are really hindering us? And so, it was just kind of a thought that I was like, wow. When I read that, I was like, man, um, let's see if his dreams come alive. He's dead, so let's see if his dreams happen. And maybe the last thing before we kind of go on to this next part is just thinking about maybe if you can't define what your dream is, I think that's a problem, right? I mean, it's not that we're going to know every aspect of what that's going to look like, but I think if you can't describe what God has given you as a dream for your personal life, for your professional life, for your family, and the future, if you can't define that, I think that's a problem. I think that's something that we need to seek God about. Get on your knees and ask God to give you a dream, because I think part of Joseph's success um, is that he was given a dream and he believed in that dream, even when he did not see it, even when it seemed so far from reality. I think the dream that God gave him is what kept him going, right, and gave him the optimism. And so, how do we live? And that's kind of the theme of today. How do we live optimistic about life, even in the valley, right? It's easy to be optimistic. Um, in the mountaintops. But how do we get to that place where no matter what the ebb and flows of life, the ups and downs of life, we can still be optimistic. Um, and I'm saying this as the eternal realist,
Pessimist.
pessimist, as my wife calls it. I say I'm a realist. It's reality, right? This is really why this can't happen and this can't. And I don't. I know that's not a great thing. It's not a terrible thing. Like, I think for all your realists out there, hit like, put realist in the comments. Like, I need to know that they're out there because I know that I'm
Oh,
not
there's plenty
alone.
out there.
Those realists, realists represent, right? Like, um, but and optimists sometimes drive us crazy, right?
Hmm.
But we really realize that we need to be optimistic. Like, Joseph was optimistic, and I think the root of his optimism has to root of optimism in general. Studies have shown and proven that some of the things, and one of the keys is gratitude.
Right.
One of the keys is being grateful for what you have now. And so that's really what we kind of want to talk about today, is this idea of living grateful lives, the gratitude effect. What would that look like? Having that gratitude effect on, I think, would source a source of joy beyond what we could really understand, even in the hard moments of that. And so, that's really what we want to talk through, because I think optimism leads to a healthier well-being in your life, and I think it's rooted in gratitude. And so, how do we live grateful lives? How do we do that? And we have some thoughts on some ideas for you. One of the things that um, I'm trying this year. One of the things that I've read for years in leadership books, and just in people that have been successful in life, is that people that are one of the common things is that they journal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see that they journal these things. And so one of the things that um, w- we're trying this year, I'm trying this year, this week is the first attempt to have a gratitude journal. um, and I think that the thing about that is, I could tell you I was doing it, and then I went to Lanita and I told her this sucks. like like I'm not good at this. Like I just read it. There was like I'm like they didn't give me, they didn't tell me what to be grateful about. And she said, well, that's the point.
Right. List 5 things you're grateful for. What? Like it's, changing your mindset. And as he was saying, being a realist is it's harder for him versus somebody that's naturally optimistic. I think I can look and say 5 things I'm grateful for. Okay, well, I'm grateful for my family, for our health, for the house that I have, the car that I drive, the jobs that we work, the fact that there's no snow that I have to shovel outside today. Like I could just look at things and they don't have to be huge, like profound things I'm grateful for. I can just look around and see my kids running around and playing and being grateful for their health and that they can run around and play. And I naturally think of those things to be grateful for because I'm just more, my temperament, everything about me is more optimistic versus when he sees list 5 things you're grateful for, it's
Deer in headlights
I
almost.
mean, I'm
It's not
grateful, but
right. It's not that I'm not grateful or don't have things to be grateful for. And honestly, it's been a challenge, and uh, good. I say that, you know, kind of squirmy a little bit, because it's been a challenge. But when I did sit down and do it, it's been good. It has been, because it's just getting in that mindset. And for me, one of the things that I have to do in that is be more specific. Like, okay, what am I thankful for in my family right now? Like, what am I thankful for about um, ministry or life, or like, and I kind of have to break it up mentally into categories so that I can kind of look at those things, because I think the eternal optimist and the eternal realist, pessimist. I look to the negative before I look to the positive. And so this is forcing me to think about the positive things, which has
mm-hmm,
been great. I thought it was funny because one of the things that I was kind of doing some research on is that when you have a gratitude journal, that you can they talk about how the gratitude journals have been shown to result in 5 to 15% increase in optimism and 25% increase in better quality of sleep. And so,
sure.
so if you were to just kind of round those numbers off, and I were to ask you, be like, hey, this year, would you like to be 10% more optimistic?
Mm-hmm.
I think some of us would go, yeah. And that's because you're already
Yeah.
optimistic. When I read that, I was kind of like, that's it. Right. And I think that that's kind of the funny thing about this too, is that um, sometimes, especially when it comes to resolutions and doing these things, like we bite off more than we can chew, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want an inch, we want a mile, right? We don't want 10 pounds, we want 100 pounds. We want,
We want
like,
it
we
now.
want it now. We want an
Mm-hmm.
instantaneous generation, with a microwave generation, right? We want it at our fingertips. man, when that internet slows down, we
Ooh,
completely freak out when we used to have to go.
dial up, yeah.
We played that sound for our kids the other day. They had no idea. They're like, "What is that annoyingness?" Like,
Hey, I used to know whether I was getting connected or not because I knew the sounds,
right.
right? I mean, yes, that was our
And
generation.
so, the instantaneousness of our desire is to just
Mhm,
boom fast, right? You Google how to lose, weight fast, right? That's going to be a top trend. That's going to be
right.
those things. How to do these things fast. So when I say you could have 5 to 15% of increase in optimism, of gratitude this year. For some of us, we look at it and go, "That's not great." But sometimes, and we talked about this last week, is that incremental change is the
Mhm,
key, right? It's not biting off more than we can chew, because it's not sustainable either, right? The fad diets, the quick diets,
mhm.
you don't stay on that long, right? And you might lose weight quick, but then you go back to exactly the way you were living because you were depriving yourselves, and you put the weight right back on, right? And that same concept applies to really every area of our life, um, including optimism and being grateful. And so, if you could be 10% more grateful this year,
Mhm.
that'd be huge. What would that do for you? How would that elevate your life, and the ripple effect that would have, not only in your personal you, maybe
Mhm.
you'd be more kind to yourself and not kill your dreams, right?
Right.
Maybe your marriage, something would shift in your marriage. Maybe the way you interact with your kids and your job. Like 10% could have a massive impact on your life.
Well,
And
and consider that if you continue going forward, if you don't just say, well, I'm just going to do this for now. Oh, now I'm a little more grateful, but you continue, like over time, that 10% will multiply. Like, and I think some of the difference between the optimist and the pessimist, the realist, whatever you want to call it, is the idea of looking for something to be grateful for versus, like you said, you're constantly like your first response is kind of the negatives, or well, if I do this, this, and this might happen, versus the other way is, well, if I do this, these things might happen, right? Like one of us goes one way and the other goes the other way. And I think especially in our marriage, because I'm generally the optimist. I'm as he says, I'm the cart before the horse, right? I'm constantly looking ahead and saying, okay, well, if this happens and all these great things can happen. And he's like, hello, this one thing has to happen first. And I'm always like, oh, well, but, I like to look ahead. So we always joke that I'm a kite and he's the rock holding me to the ground, because otherwise I would just fly all over. So in our marriage, we've had to learn to balance each other, because there are certain times that me being over optimistic can really get on his nerves, to the point where he's like, just stop. Like, we have to do these things first, stop looking ahead. And then there's times that his negativity can really bring me down, where I could go and get really kind of, I don't want to say depressed, but kind of in certain thoughts and stuff, where I lose some of that optimism, and I have to look at him and be like, stop being so negative. Like, and we've had to really work through some of those things, and we're not perfect at it. I mean, there's still things that happen, right? Where that's who we naturally are. But in our marriage, we've had to learn to sometimes reel ourselves in. Like, I may still be looking ahead at stuff, I just don't tell him, right? And he may be thinking some negative things about something that might happen, and he's trying to be more real for me, right? He's trying not to get, I think in a sense, you're trying to protect me because I get all my hopes and dreams up in this one spot, and you're trying to like pull it back and say, but if this doesn't happen, I don't want you to be disappointed. And I'm the person that's just like, but I just want a dream, right? And so we've had to learn to balance each other out without bumming and without like being over.
yeah, and I think the right word is balance, right? There is a
Mhm.
balance to that. I think one of the reasons that God brought us together is to be that balance.
Mhm.
I think opposites attract, not only just naturally, but I think because God designed it that way to a degree. Like,
Yeah.
um, I'm my yin to your yang, right? I don't
Sure.
like that stuff, but that kind of that concept of like uh, the opposite approach, right?
Mhm.
I'm the let's figure out the details and the facts and follow the procedures and look at these things and how we can improve, and that's good at times, right? That's good. Like, at work, it helps. It works well in ministry. It works well in business. It works well in a home. But then on the flip side, it's not great in a home because you need to be optimistic when there is nothing to be optimistic about, and you need to look ahead and plan and have vision and excitement for a future when I'm looking here and she's looking there. And so there's kind of that balance approach of saying that there, and to me, I think that that's good. That's it's okay, and we need those people in our life. If you
Yeah.
are a realist or a pessimist, then you need to make sure you find those optimistic people and get around them. Sometimes you need to push them away. Sometimes you need that because I think the reality is that we struggle. We just want you to like, but it's probably not going to happen. So let's like,
Right.
why is it worth even thinking about? Because it's not going
Mhm.
to happen. Like, and you're just like, yeah, but just dream a minute. And so I think it's just kind of finding that balance between the two personalities and two approaches to life, um, which makes, I think, for a well-rounded approach.
Right. And so that's, yeah, and I guess that's the thing. One of the practical things is if you are a negative person or a realist or somebody that's always kind of thinking down, thinking about your friends, thinking about your family, and thinking about the people that you could maybe, I know it's humbling to go to them and say, "Hey, I know I'm kind of always down and you tend to see things more positive. Either as simple as could you pray for me that I could help with that, or since you're always positive, maybe could you send me a text once a week? Hey, how's it going? And even telling me something great, like, did you see how great the weather was today? I don't know, that's something silly. But like having them send you a text or having them send you encouragement to help lift you up. And then if you're that over optimistic person that's constantly feeling let down because you are so high and always thinking of all these great things, and then you're kind of getting let down because the real world exists, like having those people that can help ground you, not be negative for you, but help ground you when you are thinking really far ahead, having that person be like, okay, but remember, we got to get through these steps first, and making go, oh, yep, 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 you're right, we do. But having this, so I feel like finding those friends, finding that family, and just making check ins for each other.
Well, I think that to me, that's why the church has been such a vital part of my life, right?
Hmm.
When I'm struggling, I get into a place where I am around other people and they are encouraging, and we spend time in worship, and a message is preached that's upward thinking. Typically, that's the direction as Christians we try to move people, maybe challenge, but then move them upward into thinking about things from a positive perspective. And so I think that that's why for me the church is so important, right? And
Yeah.
and that's we are the church as a collective, as a whole. And so that's why I think God designed us that way to not do this alone.
Hmm.
And really the one of the reasons we decided to do a gratitude journal too is because of the opportunity it gives you when you put entries in there and you're struggling to be optimistic. It's a good idea to re-look at those things, to
Yeah.
kind of flip back through some of the things that you wrote down in the past, and maybe it shows you like how far you've come, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it's a reminder of, oh, I forgot about what God did in that moment. I forgot about the great things that was happening in our family at that moment. And when you're in the midst of struggle, it's hard to think about the positive things. But when you have a reference point, I think it's such a great way. The song "Count Your Blessings," name them one by one,
Right.
count your blessings, and see what God has done. Like, um, is a great reminder, is a great actual practical thing to do to
Mhm.
help you stay grounded, stay focused, stay grateful, even when you're struggling. And that's part of it is to look back. In a 2012 study presented to the Journal Society of Psychology and Personal Science, found even when you're giving negative feedback, you have uh, participants who ranked higher on gratitude scales were less likely to retaliate against others, even when getting negative feedback, which I thought was kind of an interesting thought because if you were to think about it from that perspective of like, um, you know, if I'm more grateful, even when people are negative towards me, I'm less
Mhm.
likely to lash out. I'm less likely to
Sure.
freak out. I'm less likely to do those things because um,
Yourself,
you're
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 already lifting yourself up,
right.
so
I
when
think
those
it's
negative comments come, they don't hit you as hard,
yeah.
maybe.
I think if you
Yeah.
you have a better understanding of like, yeah, but look what I got. Look at who I am.
Mhm.
Look at where I've been, and look at what God's doing. It's easier to not be like, oh, you're right. Right. Yeah, you're right, but you should have saw me last week, right? Uh, uh, those are the things that really help in that process, and so I think it's really important to share in those stories, to look at those things. And so I think journaling is such a great opportunity. It's not something that I've been good at, and it's not something I've done it. I do it a lot more professionally, probably. As I plan, I get up in the middle of the night and I'll have ideas for series, for ministry opportunities, for things that I really want to do, and I'll get up in the middle of the night and well type it probably, but I don't necessarily do it as much for my personal life. And
Mhm.
so for me, this is a new kind of challenge to say, you know what, I want to do this personally for me because you know what, let's just see what 10% more grateful looks like. How many of us would love 25% better sleep at night?
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
some of us are look for that magic pill to help us sleep better at night, and I think if that were to be an area, I think that would reflect positively on the rest of your day, right? If you wake up
Mhm.
groggy and tired and need 5 cups of coffee, that's the norm. That's not a great thing, right? I mean, we've been there, right, and we've struggled in that. But like, what if just a simple change of taking 5 minutes, to write it out? We actually made a free resource that if you want to download it, we'll have the link at the description of this video, just to give you an idea. It just gives you some kind of points to go through. Actually, we're kind of going to be probably tweaking a few things
Yep.
just from my perspective and how I think, and because Lanita kind of put most of it together for this, because and so it's just one of those things of trying to help you just start somewhere, right?
Yep.
Make a small incremental change that could have lasting, eternal difference
Mhm.
in your marriage, in your personal life, in your family. And really, that's all that matters. That should be the goal of every person, whether it's at the beginning of a year or in the middle of a year. Doesn't matter. If you want to make change, do it now. Don't wait for someday. Take a moment and do it, and just say, "I'm going to do it today. I'm going to start today. I'm going to journal today. I want to be more grateful and thankful, and what ripple effects will happen because of that." So that's our first kind of just talking point. We have three other things that we want to address when it comes to gratitude. Anything you want to get a whole before we finish up?
I just the thought of being more grateful and getting more sleep, because I think you you know how many times you lay in bed and you think about all the things that happened in your day and you think about all the negatives, and I think that's probably why, like, if we could be more grateful at bed at night, we wouldn't be thinking about all those things, and we'd be more grateful about the things that have happened. And I think that's just going to give you a better sleep. So Like you said, we've got um, this journal that you guys can get, and even if it only takes you 5 minutes, even right before bed, to as you're going to sleep, be thinking about the positives of your day. Like like you said, just start, even if you don't get it every day, starting somewhere and trying to have a lifestyle more of gratitude. Um, I don't know how that's ever going to be bad. So
Right. Right. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. And I'm going to come up with some cool slogan, but the
there
thing
we
that comes to
go.
my head is like, I survived today, right? I hope that you survived today. I hope that this was encouraging to you today. I hope this gave you some practical ideas of how you can be 10% more grateful, 25% better sleep. Guaranteed money back. No, I'm just kidding. But if we can be grateful people, what can the ripple effect of that be in
Hmm.
our lives today? So I'm grateful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.